Good morning, Mr. Gojanovic. I'd like to take you straight away to the first statement that you made on the 20th of January 2005, which you've been looking at. Now, at the time you made that statement, you confirmed that it was true to the best of your knowledge and recollection. Do you agree, Mr. Gojanovic?
I agree.
And you knew that when you made that statement, the statement itself may be used in legal proceedings and that you may be called to testify before this tribunal.
Yes.
Let me take you straight away to the relevant part for my purposes of your statement, which is paragraph 13, if you can have that before you. It states as follows: I also learnt later that all the equipment and machinery from the factory in Kistanier was taken by a detachment of men acting under the orders of General Cermak. This is stupid because we were capturing the area and the factory would have provided employment for our people, but in this way all the money went to the generals and we, the liberators, got the blame. Based on what I was told, they used military trucks to take the things from the textile factory, and when Cermak arrived, he chased all the soldiers that were checking it away, cordoned it off, and began loading the equipment onto military trucks. I learnt this later from someone in the 142nd Home Guard Brigade, and that it happened sometime after my unit had left the area. Now, that was your statement in 2005, Mr. Gojanovic, and last week in the proofing session that you were told that Cermak's people, who were infamous, arrived and chased the soldiers away, and that you were not told that Cermak himself arrived. Have I stated that correctly?
Yes.
Now, I'd like you to help me with this. Why is it that you said in your first statement that Mr. Cermak was not only present, but he was chasing, cordoning off and loading?
I used the wrong term when speaking about Cermak. I actually meant Cermak's men. And the information I received from somebody else, I put it in the correction of my statement from 2005.
Well, let's look at that a little bit more closely, if we may. Now, you were given the chance to correct items in your 2005 statement when you gave your second statement this year in January 2008, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree with me, I presume, that it's a very different matter to say that someone was present or that it was in fact people present, not being Mr. Cermak. You'd agree that that was a significant inaccuracy, I presume. Could you...
Yes, I agree with you.
Just help me with this. Why is it that you waited until just a couple of days before coming to testify at this court to make that correction? Why didn't you make it in your second statement?
As I have said a bit earlier, let me explain. When using the word Cermak, when giving my statements, I had in mind Cermak's men. But when I went back and reviewed my statement, I still took it that in saying Cermak, I meant Cermak's men. And it is an omission on my part that I didn't put it in concrete terms as the situation required.
Just to conclude on that point, you'd agree with me that on a reading of your first statement in Croatian, the meaning is in fact that Mr. Cermak was present chasing loading. Correct?
Ms. Higgins, your point is perfectly.
Thank you, Your Honour. I'll
Please
move on.
proceed, yes.
Let me examine the source with you, Mr. Gojanovic. Who gave you this alleged information? Can you give me the name, please?
Dao mi je jedan pripadnik 104.
A member of 142nd provided it to me, and that was after the year of 2000. It was done in the work of the association that I have been leading for 8 years now. His name is Miro.
Mr. Gojanovic, why didn't you provide that name prior to just now? Why didn't you tell the prosecution and give that detail, if that's correct?
Zato što sam
Because, as chairman of the Croatian Association, I have the duty to protect the interest of Croatian demobilized defenders.
Well, you also have a duty to come before this court and provide truthful and accurate information of which you're aware. So I'd like to ask you if you can provide me with his address, please, as I'd like to make contact with this individual.
nemam adresu te osobe.
I don't have the address of this person because the association is has such a system of work where the president has contact with people without having to know their addresses.
Where were you when the conversation took place? Do you remember that?
Ne, to se sad u ovom trenutku.
No, right now I can't remember that. I can't recall because it's been a long time. However, the fact remained etched in my memory, and I wanted to use that fact to clarify to the Hague investigators the situation that was described in rumors circulating at the time.
How did the conversation come about, Mr. Gojanovic? How did it come that you were talking with this man about a factory in Kistanje? Do you remember that?
Rad udruge
The work of the association, which I have been leading for years, includes a number of types of communication about the activities which took place during the war and after the war. And in that sense, the primary task of the president of the association and the association itself is to protect the interests of all demobilized Croatian defenders, regardless of how difficult are the circumstances in which these defenders find themselves nowadays.
If you can answer my question, which is this: how did it come about, the circumstances that you and this individual were talking about a factory in Kistanje? I understand the role of your association. That's not my question.
Ako me pitate na
If you are asking me about the very specific circumstances of that conversation, I simply do not recall them right now. If you're asking me about very general circumstances about that conversation, then I have already provided the answer to you through my previous answer.